It's Commander Tresdin to you.
I have always had a soft spot for Tresdin, the Legion Commander. Her lore is amazing, and I used to love playing her back when jungling level 1 was a thing, despite all the reports I got for doing so. She's probably the hero with the most lore across all the Dota IPs, as she's found in all the games and plays a central part in several. She is featured in 2 comics and mentioned in a 3rd, which we will go through. But first, let's talk about her Dota 2 bio, her first comic, her Arcana and Immortals, her second comic, an artifact as well as underlords, some relationships, and then trivia. So, what happened first? The attack on Stonehall or the Battle of Roseleaf? The scholars debated to no end, but most settled on the compromise that the happenings are in separate timelines, because they just don't add up. I will get back to this. I have decided to start off with our Dota 2 bio and first comic. Tip of the Spear tells the story of how Legion Commander's city, Quine, was attacked by the Stonehall Bronze Legion. She was a 15-year-old slave, so she didn't care much about patriotism. She was told she could either join the Legion or be thrown into a pit to die. She tried to challenge the Legion Commander, but ended up beaten and thrown into the pit. However, she survived, and eventually, through simple hard work, she climbed up the ranks. She tells this story retrospectively while waiting to siege the city of Moorbeak. When she sees a weakness, the expert tactician rushes in for a quick W. She always fights in the vanguard of her own battles and leads by example. Then the battle ends and they return to talk tactics. One interesting detail here is that Legion Commander doesn't drink coffee, and the fact that Marcus is alive. This will be interesting when talking about her second comic in the Copper Arcana comic. Lastly, Tip of the Spear ends with the Abyssal attack on Stonehall, as seen on the horizon, and we proceed to Tresdin's bio in Dota 2. So I always write my own summary of the bios, but this time let's read it out because it's so well written that I can't do it justice. They came without warning. Within the city walls of Stonehall, there came a rumble and a terrible sound, and from blackness unknown came a force of beasts numbering beyond count, wielding flame and foul sorcery, slaying and snatching mothers and sons to dark purpose. Led by the indomitable Commander Tresdin, was near enough to answer the call of battle. They rode into their city, fighting through bloodstained alleyways and burning markets, cutting their way through the monstrous throng to the source of the sudden invasion, an ethereal rift within the city square, and at its precipice thundered their dreaded champion. Enwrapped in a corrosive shimmer, the leader of the Abyssal horde swung its massive blade, cleaving a legionnaire in 2 as his flesh began to spoil. Tresdin lifted her bloodstained sword and settled her sights on the beast. It turned, smiling at her through a maze of teeth. Heedless of the battle raging around them, they charged one another. Deflecting blow after blow, the pair danced their deadly duel as the Bronze Legion met its end around them. Tresdin leapt forward as her foe swung its sword to meet her. The odds turned. The attack smashed into Tresdin suddenly, a brutal thrust from the side, but even as her balance slipped, she rallied her strength for another stroke. Blade scraped on blade, beyond the hilt to the gnarled paw below, carving it in 2 in a fearsome spray of sparks and blood. The vile audience looked on in astonishment as she pressed the attack, driving her blade through her foe's flesh into the stampeding heart within. With a scream that split the clouds above, the beast erupted in a torrent of gore and anguish. The Stygian portal wavered, the power sustaining the chasm beyond, vanishing as suddenly as it had appeared. The remaining invaders fell quickly to Stonehall steel. Though victorious, the survivors saw little to celebrate. The city lay in ruins, and survivors were few. Fires continued to spread. Unfurling her banners of war, Tresdin gathered what allies she could. Her anger smoldered as she pledged brutal vengeance upon the forces of the Abyss, and damned be any who dare stand in her way. So basically, Legion Commander gets attacked by the Abyssal horde led by Vrogros the Underlord. She ultimately wins the duel, but her city, Stonehall, is in ruins. She later gets the cosmetic banners, the legacy of the fallen Legion, and she pledges to avenge Stonehall. This pledge of vengeance leads her to the demonic armorer Quith, who gives her the Arcana blades Voth de Mosh. She seemingly got them for free, but the real cost becomes apparent the more she uses them. She's literally becoming a demon, even capable of swearing in the demon tongue, Osgavosh. She later also seeks out the baneful devotion helmet while searching for more weapons to aid her in her thirst for revenge. Ironically, her hatred for the demonic doesn't mean she won't utilize diabolical items from the Abyss. We never find out if she ever got her revenge or if Stonehall recovered. My guess is it did get rebuilt, and then possibly the next battle we're going to talk about, the one of Roseleaf, happened. But some things don't add up, which is why many think they're separate timelines. Like, for example, LC is not demonic at all in Artifact. So maybe in one timeline the Abyssal attack doesn't happen, then the Roseleaf battle does. In another, the Stonehall battle does happen, but she doesn't turn demonic and the Roseleaf attack never happens. And then maybe in another, the Stonehall battle happens, but she doesn't turn demonic, and then years later the Roseleaf attack takes place. But you don't have to take my word for it. Let's go through our second comic in the Battle of Roseleaf. It starts out with Tresdin talking about Stonehall's conquests in the surrounding areas. In the comic, Marcus is, spoiler alert, gonna die, and Tresdin is drinking coffee, so if it is in the same timeline as the Abyssal attack, it happens after. In the comic we meet a new character, Rix. He is a member of the Bronze Legion, close to Legion Commander Tresdin and Marcus. Together, they siege down many cities. They get cut off by a woman telling them Stonehall is under attack by the Red Mist Horde. The Red Mist Horde you can learn about more in my Axe video, but basically, they're an army of Oglodi warriors who seek to destroy any force they fear might one day attack them. Their leader is the incredibly scary and cunning Sorla Khan, who took over after Axe ruined the Red Mist years ago before becoming an adventurer celebrity. Tresdin is upset by the patterns of behavior they see in Sorla's attacks. She's sensing that maybe Sorla is smarter than she seems and is actually tricking them in some way. She discovers that the Red Mist plans on getting through the nearby villages, Amber and Roseleaf, so they can get into Stonehall's back door. Basically, push the creep wave and TP in when backdoor protection is down and take the throne while the Bronze Legion protects the racks. Tresdin wants Rix to go to Roseleaf, which is inhabited by Vools, the same kind as him, to tell them what's coming so they will cooperate with the Bronze Legion. Rix finds that a bit racist since he's not really from there, and besides it means the innocent Vools of Roseleaf will get involved, so he's hesitant to agree, but he does. Ember is already in flames. As time goes on, Rix gets incredibly upset about the way Stonehall treats the Vools of Roseleaf. Marcus is increasingly more hostile and racist, both to Vools and Oglodi. Then we see Legion Commander meet up with her presumed boyfriend, the Goatman Belisano. She then talks to the Emperor of Stonehall, Galanius, and tries to gain his favor in her plan to ambush the Red Mist at Roseleaf. He doesn't like it, but he gives in. Then lastly, we see Marcus and Rix talking about Rix having spent an awful lot of time in the wine cellar. And then Rix reveals that he has been talking to the people of Roseleaf about rebellion rather than complacency, and ganks Marcus dead. The comic ends with Rix cutting off his Stonehall metal tattoo.
I know these people think me a monster. I don't blame them. No one wants to be occupied, but it's in their best interests. If we weren't here in Roseleaf, the Red Mist would have slaughtered them all. Today the Vools see us as villains, but after we defeat Sorla Khan, the Bronze Legion will be heralded as the heroes we are.
So, to summarize, the Bronze Legion has been sieging down the nearby settlements. Then they discover that the Red Mist is trying to attack Stonehall, and they try to stop it by ambushing them in Roseleaf. The Vools that inhabit Roseleaf doesn't like that, so they rebel. At this point, the Bronze Legion is both facing the rebellion from the inside, as well as an attack by the Oglodi Red Mist trying to get in. We don't know how the battle ends, but what seems to be happening is Tresdin shuts down the rebellion, but maybe loses to the Red Mist because of this voice line from Dark Willow.
I found this in what was left of Roseleaf. The Bronze Legion thought they were going to fend off the Red Mist Horde. They weren't ready for what awaited them.
What she found was the bullsnake emblem, the icon of Stonehall. But their loss could also be because of Rix taking the oath with Shadow Fiend, raising the dead Vools to fight again. So why does this not add up? Well, it's the last frame of Queen of Pain's Arcana comic that bothers me. She is saying that Shadow Fiend already has Rix's soul, so this is surely in the future. Rix sells his soul after he has been defeated, after he rebelled against the Bronze Legion in Roseleaf. But then Queen of Pain also says, let Rogros plan his attack on Stonehall. But that happened way in the past, so how is that possible? The Abyssal attack on Stonehall has to be before the one in Roseleaf, but Rix took the oath after the battle. I don't know, maybe I'm missing something? I used to excuse it as different timelines, or the Abyssal attack being way in the past so they had time to rebuild. But because in Quap's comic they are parallels, both of those options are moot, and the only explanation is that Valve doesn't know their own lore, or at least they don't care to make everything make sense, which is very disappointing. Legion Commander and the Bronze Legion in Stonehall Empire is likely based on the Roman Empire. The aesthetic and behavior is very similar. In Dota 1, Legion Commander was a man. That's maybe why she respects heroes with mustaches and mounts, because she looked like this.
I like your mount. Nice mustache!
Elsie is also a bit of a xenophobe, disliking almost anything not human. This is also something they took from Dota 1.
Never trust an assassin. Never trust a wizard. Never trust a dragon. Never trust a demon. Never trust a snake. Never trust a fish. Never trust a tree. Never trust an engineer. Never trust an insect. Never trust the dead. Never trust a bear. Never trust a... What are you anyway?
Her voice line
War. War always changes.
is a reference to Fallout. War never changes.
You won't win the war by dying for your ancient. You win by making the other dumb, unfed bastard die for theirs.
Is a reference to a quote by George S. Patton: "The object of war is not to die for your country, but to make the other bastard die for his." Lastly, her voice line,
Thunderdome!
when dueling Zeus, is a reference to the Thunderdome of Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome. Legion Commanders' relationships are not very friendly and very shallow, maybe except Underlord, who she hates with passion.
Abyssal scum!
Allied voice lines are few, and none of them particularly positive. Most of her voice lines are to demonic heroes she hates.
Begone, Hellspawn!
So that's it for my Legion Commander video. I'm right now working on Anti-Mage's persona. Until then, I have a video about Anti-Mage you might find interesting. It's up in the top right corner. Hope to see you around. Peace.